What's going on, guys? Aaron, the amateur adult here on Easy Street. So, I think today we need to have a little bit more of a serious conversation about my life after I got out of the truck. If you guys looked at my last videos, I told you guys um, that I left Prime, that the other trucking jobs I did in the interim. So, we're going to get to what happened after that right after the intro. So, I've been homeless. Not like rough patch homeless. I mean, actually on the street. And that experience completely changed the direction of my life in ways that I never expected. So, this is my story there. Before we dive in, I do want to be clear about the timeline. This isn't current. Obviously, I'm in a home. My bout of homelessness happened years ago, but it's the reason that I'm so passionate about what I'm going to tell you guys. Um, so let's rewind. Back in 2012, 2013, um, I had a job that was supposed to transfer me out of state. I gave my landlord notice, and he got rid of my apartment, or released my apartment. He, you know, we told him we were leaving. There was nothing we could do about it. So we meaning my ex-wife and I, had to leave the apartment. There was no two ways about it. We had to leave. And we stayed in a hotel for a little bit. And unfortunately, um, the money dries up quick when you're staying in hotels, especially in Virginia Beach. And so eventually, I lost my job. I ended up on the street, and I lost my job because of my hygiene. There was no way that I could maintain hygiene. There was no way that I could ensure that I would make it to work every day. Um, so I had no choice but to just live on the street. Um, I had a bag of hard candy, mixed hard candy. I don't even remember where it was from, but um, that's what I lived on to survive. Um, that and drinking water from the Walmart water fountain. And this went on for 372 days. So, like, what, a year and a week roughly? Um, and, there were people that would come by and they'd say, hey, man, I'll get you something to drink, or, I'll get you something at the 7-Eleven. Because I stayed at a bus stop that was right around the corner from a 7-Eleven. That was where I slept. Um, I um, basically a blanket in one of those semi-covered bus stops. But the amount of times that people would just say that it would be words, was you know astronomical, and it hurt. You know, um, at the time, Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, that area of Virginia only had 2 hot meals a week. So that was all I was able to get, and that's if I could get a bus pass to get to them. And it was tough. It was tough. If we got $1 or $2 or whatever, we'd go and get a can of Chef Boyardee from the Walmart, and that would be our meal. And it humbles you. It humbles you in ways that that you wouldn't imagine, especially if you're like me and too proud to ask for anything. So, um, I mean, it, it it just is a place where your dignity is taken away, where your humanity is taken away. It was mentally and emotionally taxing, but I got through it. That's the big thing. And really the way I got through it was a kind person who would would frequent the bus stop that I stayed at. It was a transfer point for him to a different bus. And he saw me out one day putting in applications. And he met me at the bus stop that day. I must have been walking back or something. Um, or maybe he saw me in the morning, I don't remember. Um, but he said, "Why don't you come and stay on my couch? You can get a shower, you can shave, you can get cleaned up, and you should be able to land a job." He's like, "I see you have what it takes. I see you have the drive. So, you know, some kind person just offered me to stay on the couch, and that is what lifted me out of homelessness." I mean, it meant a lot that one person cared. You know, I was able to think clearly, and this he really changed my life. And I'm not going to talk about names. That's I don't have permission to give his name or anything like that. But if you're watching this, man, I appreciate you. You set the tone for the rest of my life, and I owe you a severe debt of gratitude. So it took me a couple of years, but I finally found trucking. And I've gone into that in past videos, the different things that I've done in trucking and, um, that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to rehash it here, but, I found that trucking is the perfect job for someone on the street. You get a roof over your head and you have a job. It pays pretty darn well for what you have to do to get that income. So, and I wasn't on drugs, I wasn't drinking, so I didn't have any addictions to worry about. So I chose trucking because it was more of a steady pay, it was travel, it was independence, and it really gave me a life that I can afford now. It gave me a life that I have now. Um, you know, so I left trucking. I I felt unfulfilled toward the end. It was really eating at me. Having experienced homelessness, I couldn't just drive around knowing what that life was like and realizing that I can share that with others. So I made a decision. I left trucking and I went to work in homeless services. Um, I became a case manager, and I was able to help provide the life for others that I wish somebody would have provided to me. Um, and in my case management, um, I knew what it was like to be on that side without feeling like there's anybody on your side, anybody wanting to help you. So I wanted to be that person. I wanted to be the person that helped me. While I couldn't put everybody on my couch, obviously, um, I was able to get with a program that provided initial rental assistance and, temporary rental assistance while they got on their feet. And it was so rewarding seeing people going from their lowest point, because I'd been there. I probably had the same look in my eyes to being able to provide for their family, being able to thrive. Taking them from intake where you're just gathering information and then showing them places, taking them to job interviews. It was just, it was such a rewarding experience to see what I wish, what I wish could have been done for me in the system. It brought them humanity, it brought them dignity. And, it just, there's nothing better than helping someone take their life back. And, you know, not every case was easy. Not every case was easy. There were some people who struggled because, they'd been on the street for so long that their life was, that they felt their life was better out on the street. Um, Systemic issues, funding. Obviously you can't put somebody in a downtown of a city. So maybe they had to be somewhere outside, or maybe they were a couple blocks from a bus stop, so they had to walk to the bus stop. And really, I think a lot of it ended up being compassion fatigue, which is basically I was pouring my heart into my work, and I, it burns you out. Um, I learned that sometimes saying "let me find you a home" was actually easier than doing it. And some people, they slip back through the cracks. You can't help everybody. You can't fix everybody. And it's really frustrating when you care deeply about something and but you have limited resources or bureaucracy or rules around it. You know, so it's it's not always about bad choices. It's really bad circumstances that led a lot of these people to where they were. And one of the things that I was able to teach the people that I worked with, because a lot of them were just college graduates, no life experience, nothing like that, is that people experiencing homelessness are people. Dignity matters, kindness matters, and one person helping can literally change someone's entire trajectory, like that guy that helped me and put me on the couch. I don't know where I would be. I mean, it's been 13 years now that I've been off the street. I don't know where I'd be. I don't know if I would be without him. So it showed me that I'm capable of doing hard, meaningful work, fulfilling, helping others. And my lived experience actually gave me the credibility and the empathy that mattered. So all that to say, I'm no longer in homeless services. And really, it's complicated as to why. But that's actually the story for my next video. I I do have a story to tell, and the next video will explain why I made that choice. And it might surprise you. So if this video resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button below so you don't miss the next part of my story. And if you've got experience with homelessness, whether personal or professional, drop a comment. I'd love to hear your perspective. I'm just an amateur adult, but I try to be a decent human being. Thanks for watching.